All right. Welcome to the Revisiting Miyazaki panel for Twin Cities Geek. As some of you know, well, not all, but many Studio Ghibli films have been made available on HBO Max, which is the first time in the United States that any of his films or any Studio Ghibli films have been available on streaming. And so it's given a bunch of people a chance to revisit them and to talk about the movies again. And so it seemed worthwhile to go through and talk about our experience with the movies and sort of our relationship with them. And so let's go around and introduce ourselves. I'm Ryan Sanderson. I am a live theater critic for Twin Cities Geek and just a huge fan of Miyazaki for many years. Nothing specifically qualifies me to talk about him other than just having watched his movies a whole lot. Um, uh, let's go. Let's go clockwise. Um, Hotura.
Hi, my name is Artura. I really like Studio Ghibli movies. I feel like a lot of people who are anime fans grow up watching it, or either they come to like it, or like their friends show them. This is where I babble on. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm gonna start painting. Feel free
Are
to
we
ask me
all?
questions anytime, though.
All right, I'm gonna guess I'm up. I am Buttons. I am a huge Miyazaki fan. I am also a staff member of Anime Detour. So if you've been to the con, you have probably seen me running around, or at least a blur of me. That's pretty much it. I love Miyazaki films, so I'm excited to talk about it.
And I'm Kristen Svensrud. I am one of the anime and manga contributors for Twin Cities Geek. And yeah, I've liked Ghibli movies, Miyazaki movies since I was probably in my early 20s. I was kind of a latecomer. Um, but yeah, super excited to talk about them and remember them and geek out about them a little bit.
All right, so let's get started then. So for my first question that I have is kind of a multi-part question, and we'll just go around the circle with everyone for this, which was what was the first Miyazaki film that you ever saw, or Studio Ghibli? How old were you when you saw it, and kind of what uh, what was your experience with it? How did it make you feel then? And we'll add one more. If you watched it recently, um, did that experience change at all? And if so, how? So we'll just go around clockwise again. Let's start with Hotura again.
Um, so when I was 5 years old, I remember sitting in a super hot summer and I was just super bored. And my dad was just kind of like, oh my God, you need to stop annoying me. So he turned on something and it was Grave of the Fireflies. The worst movie you can give a 5 year old to watch because it's literally about World War II and how these kids survive. And mind you, I'm like his little sister's age, right? Well, she's probably like three, but I'm just like, oh, cartoon. Okay.
Oh God.
It starts out like
Oh
so
God.
depressing because this kid's just sitting in a train, like a subway station, starving. Nobody's paying attention to him. And I was like, ah, looks like my brother. What a dick. But whatever. And so then I'm sitting there watching it. And then I didn't realize that he was. So recently I did watch it again because I was like, hey, if I'm going to do this panel, I should probably figure out what was my first movie. So I watched it again and I was like, it is just as depressing, man. I cried as much as when I was 5 years old. And it's no joking matter, but like parents, worst movie you can give your kids to watch. Wait until they're like learning about World War II before you give it to them. But I just remember sitting there watching it and like I didn't understand why they left their aunt's place I didn't understand why there was a war going on. As a 5-year-old, I was like, "Ooh, cartoon," and it was just really depressing. And I cried half of the movie. And my dad comes in, he's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was just like, "She died," you know. And what I didn't realize was at the end, the boy also dies, like the brother also dies. And he's like, "This is a true story, right?" And I was like, "What?" So then he took me to the train station. He just took me to, it wasn't even the same train station. It was just a random train station. He goes, see that pillar? That's where the boy died. I'm like, what?
Holy bucket, that is
So-
harsh.
I was like, I am never watching another Studio Ghibli movie. And then I think a few years later, my parents made me watch Totoro, my neighborhood Totoro, and then Princess Mononoke and stuff like that. And then I was like, okay, not as bad, but okay. So that was my first experience. I can't say I loved it. I definitely watched it recently and have a very, very like appreciation for it, how he was willing to show, how like a lot of people, they don't want to show the dark side, but like he was willing to show Japan's dark side, and like I really have appreciation for that now. And I can't, I it's awesome and sad, but great. So that's what I have with my first.
I watched that also for the first time last week. I am not 5 years old, and it seriously disturbed me. But I mean, yeah, I mean it's one of the most honest, brutal looks at what war does to people that I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
all right. So
Mine's not nearly that depressing.
well, let's hear about
We
it.
all had a good laugh.
I believe I was about 10, maybe 11. My first one was Spirited Away. One of my friends was just really getting into anime, so she was like, "Oh, you'll love this," and I was like, "Okay, people tell me that, but I feel like half the time it's a lie." So how she got me to watch it was she told me there's a dragon in it, and like 10-year-old me, that's how you get me to watch anything is tell me there's dragon in it. And so I'm sitting there the entire time, like super hyped, and I'm like, "Where's the dragon? Where's the dragon?" Finally get the dragon, and then I'm like, first off, you lied. Second, okay, I kind of like this. It's fine. I think what really drew me to it was the fact that I think even a lot of times, like being exposed to Disney, you see like even as little kids, they're like almost made up. Like you almost look like they could be wearing makeup, and you're like, these are like 5-year-olds, these are toddlers, and it looked like they have better makeup than me. Uncalled for. But then seeing like Chichiro and like having an actual average looking child in an animation, I was like, oh, this is nice. I don't feel like I need to have better makeup than a 6-year-old. So I loved it. And I mean, I haven't watched it in a while. I did go back and watch it probably like a year ago, and it's still, I love the storyline. Still kind of sad that, I had to wait over half the movie for a dragon, but that is what it is.
It's a long wait.
Yeah, it
does take quite some time to
I
show
mean,
up.
the one thing that gets me though is just the food in that movie looks so good.
Oh my gosh. Really,
Like,
all the Ghibli movies, I'm like, I want to eat all of that.
right?
I just want to
Like, if
live there and experience all the senses there.
Right? Oh my gosh.
Like, if you ever want to get me to go somewhere, just be like, I got that food from Studio Ghibli, and I'll be like, I don't even know which movie, I don't care. I will show up.
Yes.
All right, Kristen.
Yeah, so yeah, like I kind of mentioned, I didn't really see many Miyazaki films or anything like that until I was quite a bit older. I definitely remember seeing like some of the trailers and stuff when Spirited Away came to the US, and I was like, oh, that looks really different and interesting. What is that about? But um, it was kind of in a time of my life where my parents were very like wary of anything that looked even a little bit scary or anything like that, or anything they just didn't know a ton about. So I was not allowed to watch them for a little while, or at least that one, just because that was the only one that was really super popular around the time that I was younger, that I remember anyway. And so, to be fair, like some of the Miyazaki films are pretty darn scary, as we've just discussed. But um, so in some sense they were right, I suppose. And I was kind of a wimp, so it was probably for the best that I waited a little bit. But then like I kind of got into anime and manga when I was starting kind of in middle school, and then more in high school. And like you can't really get too far in it without hearing like, oh, you have to watch like Miyazaki films. They're so kind of canonical and just important to the genre as a whole. And so I sort of had heard some friends talking about them and telling me about how great they were. And I think I remember hearing one of my friends talk about how like Princess Mononoke was one of the most like critically acclaimed or like really um, iconic ones, I guess. And so that's where I decided to start in my foray into Miyazaki films. And yeah, I remember liking it quite a lot. It was a little more violent than I kind of expected. But like one of the things that really stood out to me just from the beginning was that like even though there's some really challenging themes and some really intense moments in the films a lot of the time, like I mean some of them are a little lighter too, but most of them have sort of that like, oh, this is a pretty serious sort of theme that we're talking about or looking at a little more closely. And so like even with that though, there's just this sense of serenity and peace that sort of fills all of the movies that I've seen, at least of Miyazaki's stuff. So I just really appreciate that about them, and just they just kind of are in a class of their own in terms of the films that I've seen, and I'm more apt to like compare other things that I've seen. So I'm like, oh, this just reminds me of Studio Ghibli or something that Miyazaki's done, than like vice versa. And so they're sort of like this archetype in my own mind too. And yeah, I actually did go back and rewatch Princess Mononoke 2 or 3 weeks ago, just to get refreshed on it, because I think I hadn't seen it since I was probably 22, 23 when I first watched it. So I was like, I need to kind of remember this story a little bit better. And I had forgotten a fair amount, but yeah, just really loved sort of the like, yeah, getting into that sense of atmospheric, peaceful sort of world that he creates, and just sort of it just is different than anything else in a really lovely way. And there's just this magic to it that nothing else has quite in the same way.
Nice. My first Miyazaki film was My Neighbor Totoro, and I was 18 years old, and I am not proud of this. I was watching it with a group of other freshmen in college. I heckled the screening and ruined it for everybody, and I was a monster. I had not seen it since then until I watched it again 2 days ago and realized what a monster I was, because that is a beautiful film. Uh, I mean, I genuinely, literally cried during it this last time, and I think that probably just at the age that I was at 18, like probably a better film for me to have seen would have been like Princess Mononoke, or something a little bit less quiet and gentle, and probably something with a little bit more violence. Uh, not excusing anything there, but I also think that like I was at a weird age to see that film, because I think that that film is very much um, about small children, and then also about being a parent. It's about both of those two things, and I was not in kind of either of those categories. Like, I think probably my favorite moment in the whole movie comes when May, the younger daughter, who's like 4 years old, has just seen Totoro, and she's taking her sister and her father to the place where she last saw Totoro, and she gets there, and obviously he's not there because that's how fantasy stories work. And she just starts weeping, saying, "I'm not lying. I saw him." And her father does the best parenting thing that I've ever seen in any movie. He quiets her down, and then he goes, neither of us thinks that you're lying. How about we offer an offering to the spirit that you saw, and maybe maybe you'll see it again someday. And like, he doesn't shut her down at all, and you can immediately see like why she's able to see this spirit, and also like why she and her sister are like so confident and have such a lovely relationship, because they're not constantly like pressing down on them or trying to like push their childish instincts out of them. And then you've also got Kanta, who's like the boy next door, who's incredibly shy and who just runs away from people when they talk to him. And that you see every time that you see Kanta with an adult, that adult is like shaming him or telling him to like quiet down, or like talking about how lazy he is or something like that. And it's actually very sad, but I think that it's in there because it's for like adults. Like, this is what like what you do to a child's spirit right now is going to have an effect on them for the rest of their lives. And so watching it now from a totally adult standpoint, it really spoke to me again for like what the stakes are for how we deal with kids and their creative spirits. And I think that yeah, when you're a kid, this whole world is just fascinating on its own. You don't need like all like the idea that their house is haunted, or that there's this kind of this benevolent, super goofy spirit that lives out in the woods and carries an umbrella around, is just fascinating on its own. But yeah, from a later point of view, as I look at it now, you also you very much see kind of how those experiences that we have then kind of form the people that we become as adults, and there's a lot of wisdom behind it. And so again, beautiful, amazing film. Very much wish that I had paid attention to it back then. All right, so second question. Really quick, a couple people in the comments have pointed out that My Neighbor Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies were originally pitched as a double feature. So people were, I guess, brought in to watch one and then the other. I would assume that they did Grave of the Fireflies second. That would be my expectation.
Get them
that's
all
a hell
warm
of a
and
double
fuzzy
feature.
first.
Just to absolutely
and then ended in
destroy their
tears.
soul. Oh my gosh.
That is a
seems mean.
choice.
That is a bold one. Oh my gosh.
All right, so second questions. We're gonna kind of ask some of the same questions, but what is your favorite Miyazaki film? How old were you when you saw it? Why did you love it when you first saw it? And then, if you watched it recently, did anything about it change in what you experienced? And we'll go back to Hotura again.
The only reason why I watched it was because.
Sorry, I couldn't. I wasn't hearing you for a second. I can hear you now. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Does this make it any better if I hold it up like this?
No, you're fine. You were fine.
Okay. Just to let you know, my last name is V-O, not V-U. I was literally bored and on Netflix, and it was the first time that Ponyo was on Netflix. And I was like, holy crap, I couldn't watch this movie in theaters, and now it's on Netflix. Heck yeah, I'll watch it. So then I watched it, and after I watched it, I was just like, I don't know why I didn't go to theaters to watch this and support this movie. It's so pure and innocent and cute, and here I am being in college and being stupid. And so I was like, I'm gonna draw something. So Todd, I don't know if you could pull up my drawing. It's called Ponyo Adventure. So I did a drawing of Ponyo back then, and I drew it on a napkin at the time too. And then later on, when I got my tablet, I drew it on I drew it digitally. So oh, I renamed it. I don't know if that works. Sorry, give me a second. So later on, I went back and I redrew it, and it's Ponyo on a boat with her hands out, and with Sosuke driving the boat, and I thought it was super cute, and I super duper love that movie because I thought it was the most purest, most innocent thing ever. Yeah, that one.
That is so
So
cute.
Super sweet. Oh my
thanks.
gosh.
Yeah, this is, I think, I forgot, but I think this is where they were trying to find Sosuke's mom. And like with Ponyo's magic, she just like exploded everything and turned his little toy ship into like something massive for them to ride in. And I thought it was just super cute. If only imaginations was magic. So yeah, that's all I got.
All right. So my favorite, I don't remember what age I was when I first saw it. I was probably a teenager. What exact age I don't know. Teenage is all a blur for me. I try not to remember it. But for me it was Princess Mononoke. The first thing that really drew me in, and if we want to pull up the image here, just the sceneries, if we want to just pull up the first one, because I always thought the scenery for Princess Mononoke was so beautiful. Just even though the movie does take on darker tones, it just looks so, and just the color blending was so amazing. I cannot get over the scenery in that movie. Like I don't even want to know the amount of time that probably went into that. But yeah, I mean, God, it was probably my favorite. I went back and rewatched it today because I was like, perfect excuse. And
Totally.
oh, I still love the scenery. I think that's probably always going to be my favorite. Is just the amount of time, and I think just San as a character as well. Um, I really just loved her. I mean, she was brash. She didn't really feel the need to change who she was, and also who doesn't want to ride a wolf? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like that's childhood dream other than riding a dragon.
It's
But
pretty up there.
two, if we want to, right? If we want to pull up the Princess Mononoke Forest Spirit, I love their take on a forest spirit. I really do. I just, it was so powerful and just how he's so big and just almost alien looking and all the little stars in his body. Like, oh,
So
I love
good.
it. Everything about Princess Mononoke, I love. And I mean, even just watching it now, like, I just fall more in love with it every time I watch it.
So good. All right, Kristen.
Yeah. Yeah. So my favorite one is Howl's Moving Castle. And I think it was right around the same time that I watched Princess Mononoke that I would have seen that one. That early 20s time when I was trying to like blaze through as many as I could. Um, and so, yeah, that was just, there's just something super special about that one to me. And I think it's one of the few that is based like directly on a book that Miyazaki has done. There's a couple others that I can't think of off the top of my head, but like usually it's a lot of like Japanese folklore influence or like a story that's more familiar to probably a non-Western audience. Whereas like this one definitely had some elements of that, but it's based on a book of the same name by Diana Wynne Jones, and so it's like you know, one of the best adaptations really that I've seen. It's pretty different from the book in some of the details and stuff, and um, I think most of the changes, in my opinion, were for the better in the film. Like I think a lot of the characters are stronger, and just you get to see sort of the interplay between them that just like makes their relationship so special, and I really love that about it. And I think one of the I haven't watched it like super duper recently. I watched it probably like last year sometime, but I still remember it pretty well. And I think one of the things that stood out to me most this time is that like all of the characters are sort of trying to hide who they are or get away from who they are. And sort of the magic and the different things that happen to them in the course of the story sort of force them to take a look at who they are and come to terms with that, and sort of realize that like they can still love each other and love themselves even if there's not even if there's parts of themselves that they don't like or even see as monstrous, sort of in Howell's case at least. And like whereas in like Sophie, you know, she gets cursed to become old before her time, and it's sort of a foil to the way she's living her life. It's, you know, she's taken all this responsibility onto herself of like her family and her sisters, and feels like she has to kind of take care of everybody. And so it's sort of like the visual manifestation of that, and showing her that like, you know, you have to get past sort of this part of like this feeling that you have so much weight on your shoulders before you can break this curse, basically. And she breaks it herself, which is really phenomenal too in my mind. It's like, you know, she has this wizard Howl here who's, you think he's going to be the one to kind of do it and be the one who saves her, but she eventually figures out how to get out of the enchantment herself. And I just find that super beautiful. And that's just kind of the theme of a lot of Miyazaki's films, where like he just has this really like great female character as the lead who has a lot of depth and like who has a lot of struggles to overcome, but has to sort of find this strength in herself to overcome them. And it's just, yeah, nothing else was really doing it in quite the same way, especially at the time that a lot of them came out, I think. Or at least that's my sort of assessment of it,
No, that's accurate.
from what I've been exposed to. But I really think they were kind of groundbreaking in that way of just like, you know, not necessarily like the typical strong female character that we sort of know, and have many opinions about, but it's more like true strength and true complexity and true humanity that he's able to bring in these characters, and that's very apparent in Sophie too. And I just love that about her. And there was something that I kind of identified with her as well, and just sort of that like, you know, feeling like I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders is a feeling I tend to take on myself too, whether I need to or not. And just sort of, you know, somebody who hangs back in the background, just like kind of seeing what will happen, and then sometimes being forced to, you know, be brought out and do something a little more participatory or a little more like strong for myself. And so like that's just something that really kind of resonated with me. And she was actually one of my first cosplay that I ever did back when I was first living here in the cities. I was at Daishokan in Wisconsin Dells, and I think, Todd, I have a picture or two. I think they're just called Daishokan Sophie 1 and 2, if you can pull them up. Yeah, there's one. My little Calcifer.
Yes.
Just had the most fun. It was the first like big like major cosplay I'd ever put together too. Like I kind of made some of the pieces, found some of the pieces, and you know, learned how to dig for stuff on Etsy kind of for the first time, and all that
Etsy
good
is
stuff.
life.
So, right? Oh my gosh, what would we do without it?
I don't want to know.
So yeah, right? I know. It's just can't even imagine how we would cosplay at this point. I'd have to learn how to sew a lot more, that's for sure. But yeah, so that was really just so fun to like embody that character a little bit, and that was my first convention experience too. So just a lot of good memories around that, and yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to mention too is just like again the scenery is stunning in Howl's Moving Castle. Like, just like the castle itself, the way it's sort of like a mixture of 2D and 3D animation, just the way it just comes to life. And I've just never seen anything like it in animation. And just the huge sweeping landscapes, like the part where Howl gives Sophie that sort of like pocket dimension where it's like this beautiful flower garden. And he's like, you can just come here anytime when you need a moment of peace or whatever. There's yeah, it's kind of one of those things where like I want to go there in my mind when I need that moment of peace. I can sort of imagine that, you know. It's like
Are you gonna
there's just
try to
something
look
so
for
special about it and
turnip?
memorable. Yes, absolutely. I need my own
Are you
giant
going to
head
eat him
to
or
keep me
marry
alive.
him?
It's TBD. So yeah, I don't know. There's just something so like different about the magic and the just the way the characters behave, and there's that kind of atmospheric quality about it that can make it seem a little bit slow moving sometimes, which is a little bit different than other stuff I've seen. It's like it can almost drag depending on what mood I'm in, um, but it that by the same token, it lets you sort of immerse yourself in that world and sort of inhabit it in a different way. Because it does sort of draw you in slowly and lets you get to know it a little bit more, um, a little bit more in a careful and thoughtful way. So I really like that about it too.
Yeah, I think that yeah, a lot of the ideas and things that he finds really important, like you almost have to be really quiet and listening to get at it, and he's
Yeah,
willing to he's willing to risk certain people getting a little bored to get
for
there.
sure. That's a good way to put it.
So my favorite Miyazaki film is The Wind Rises, and I think we do have a trailer queued up for this. So and it just includes some images from the film and like because I feel like the way that things move and the way that the animation lands is really important to understand how great it is. So just getting a few clips from it, I think, will really show why the movie is as beautiful as it is, or at least partially so. Um, so this was supposed to be Miyazaki's final film. Like he pitched it as his swan song. That's no longer going to be the case because he's working on a film now called How Do You Live? But like at the time, I think he very much wanted it to be the kind of the summation of everything that he had done up until that point. And there's very much kind of an autobiographical element to the film. Like it's actually a biography about Japanese airplane designer Jiro Horikoshi, but it also feels like it's about Miyazaki and the things that have interested him and some of his own favorite subjects and conflicts throughout his life. Uh, Jiro, like a lot of characters in h's films, Jiro's a dreamer and he's a meticulous artist and craftsperson, and he's also a very gentle soul um, and a romantic, and all of these things like the film is kind of exploring like how Jiro lets his dreams drive him to do things and they give him this this power to achieve these great things, and yet another element of Miyazaki's films is sort of he's at times a very political filmmaker. I mean, Howl's Moving Castle is very anti-war, and you've got like really aggressively environmental films like Princess Mononoke. And the thing about Jiro is that at times his creations were used to do terrible things. He didn't necessarily like he didn't design them to do that, but they were used that way, and he kind of knew that they were. And the movie ends with him standing on kind of this dream plane on this grass and partially watching the burning remains of the damage that his work has done. And the movie is very like it's a huge expansive movie that's about a whole lot of things, and in a lot of ways about the things that Miyazaki made movies about his whole life, about following your dreams, kind to your neighbor, um, and the conflict between love and being devoted to your craft. And at the same time, there's that other element that Jiro gets so much of that right, but he's in a society that's unjust, and therefore he still participates in that injustice. And to an extent, it tarnishes his legacy. And to pull off that balance of not negating all of these beautiful things that Miyazaki's made his whole career about, while also not saying that this other part is okay, like, I think he picked a really difficult subject to tackle so that he could make like this final statement and give all of the wisdom that he had. And then just on top of that, like the animation is unbelievable. There is a scene of an earthquake in Tokyo that is you saw a little bit of it in the imagery on the trailer as like the railroad tracks were lifting off the ground. I think it's the most incredible, visceral, like animated sequence that I've ever seen in my life. And then there's also just like you can just get lost in the way that you watch the wind blowing off the grass and how the clouds float, and you just want to live in the world in the way he sees it, and it's all in there in this one film, kind of all of the greatness of his work encapsulated in one film. And I think that I saw it in theaters, and I had been kind of mixed on Miyazaki. I saw this in theaters like 6 years ago, and at that point I knew like I'm a super fan. I'm gonna watch all of it, and then I'm gonna watch all of it again, and I'm going to obsess over this a lot. So that was probably what made me a fan, and I just feel that way every time I watch it. So next question. Uh, what is kind of what's your relationship as a fan of these films? Like we've seen some cosplay stuff and some art, but what do you think is the enduring appeal of these movies, and how is that appeal applied to you as a fan of them? And we'll start with Hotura again.
Actually, can I think about this? Sorry,
Oh yeah,
buttons.
for sure.
Um, I wasn't prepared for this question. I feel like I have to think about it deeply now.
Okay.
That's okay. Yeah, I think for me, the real lasting thing, a lot of it does have to do with his animation and the scenery in that animation. Because no matter what film you're watching, it's breathtaking. I mean, I've never seen another animator put so much time and effort into making sure everything just looks that beautiful. Like the way he sees the world is just gorgeous, and I would love to just be in that world for a little bit. I'll take an hour, especially now. Uh, but not only that, but there's just so many messages in each film, and they're all so unique in their own way that I feel like I can't get bored. I could spend an entire weekend watching and just feel so zen after and just have different experiences with each film. And that I think is so amazing. There's not just one true tone, there's just so many that overlap.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a it feels like he did like there aren't a whole lot of films that he made or even Studio Ghibli films, but it feels like a massive body of work because of everything that they cover. And so it's so exciting to explore that. Kristen?
Yeah, probably some similar things, but yeah, there's just something really immersive about them that, they just give me a feeling that I don't get from anything else, really. And it, in some sense, it sort of reminds me of like the way it feels to be dreaming at night. You know, it's like it's this whole other reality, and like not a bad dream necessarily, but like just the way that you sort of inhabit it for however long it is. And it's kind of like coming out of like a really good book that I've been reading for ages, and it's like I have to reorient myself into the real world again, like a little bit of a story hangover almost. And it's kind of amazing for that reason. And it's like one of the last like holdouts of 2D animation, really. And like I know there's some 3D elements, obviously, but like it just reminds me of like to a certain extent, like it sounds silly to say, but um, just like the amount of like the depth of beauty and detail and just love that can be poured into something like that, which you can also get in other mediums for sure, but I think we're sort of losing that one particularly, and so it feels really nice to see that we still have these and that they're still so important and beloved and something that has such staying power. And they really do sort of tackle some really core themes of just like what it means to be a human, really, and what it means to be a child or a parent or to be someone who's learning and growing or somebody who's thrown into a situation that they know nothing about and have to figure out suddenly and stuff that we've all sort of had at different points in our lives and can relate to and sort of generate from it. It's kind of like you bring something new to it every time you watch it and take something different away every time. And so in some ways, like having come to them later in my life a little bit than some people have who are fans, it makes me sad a little bit because like I didn't get to see what it was like as a kid and like get that experience, but I also there's so much that I can appreciate in them as an adult and like stuff that it just brings new depth to it every single time I see one of the films, and just noticing different things and learning different things and remembering things that I've forgotten that I want to remember. And yeah, there's just something about it that's like living and breathing and that you can engage with.
Yeah, definitely. I also kind of feel like I missed out on because I didn't start watching them until I was an adult. But my little sister is 13 and my little brother is 15, and so we started watching the films probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and through kind of I've been able to at least somewhat vicariously experience it that other way through them, especially when I was like, "Hey, I want to. We need to try. We're going to try something. It's not our usual, but we're going to give this a shot. If you're okay with that." And having them be interested in that and then get excited about it and want to watch more of them was really cool. But specifically for my personal experience with the films, I think that it's best summed up. So a couple years ago, I was just feeling very depressed, very down, and I called a friend of mine and was like, "Hey, would you be willing to like go out to a restaurant somewhere?" It was like 11 at night, and we drove out and we just were talking, and we were driving through Uptown, and it was right about midnight, and I was just like, "Hey, uh, they're doing midnight movies tonight. Let's just take a look at what they're showing. Like, would that be cool with you?" And we drive by, and it's Porco Rosso on the marquee. And I was like, "Yeah, let's. I haven't seen it. Let's go in there and let's do a Miyazaki." And we went in. We were like 10 minutes late. We got in right after like the children were all playing in the planes with the pirates and messing around with all the pirates equipment and stuff. And for like an hour and 45 minutes, I was just like immersed in like the most joyful kind of creativity, like just the most innocent, like like um like you take for granted that play is a way that you heal when you're a child, or that imagination is something that is healing. That like when you've had a bad day, you can go into like your toys or into your imagination or into your writing or however you express yourself creatively, and this is a way that you heal yourself. And like I just it didn't solve all the problems, but I slept easily that night, and I think that that's kind of how I've experienced Miyazaki coming to him as an adult. And I think there is a picture here because the next Halloween I went as Porco, and I think we do have a picture of that. Is it under Porco in the folder? Yes, there we are.
That's
So
awesome.
that was the next Halloween. I'm still waiting to use that costume again. It is still sitting in wait. I was gonna go to my first ever convention this year, and it doesn't look like that's gonna happen. But but I will be wearing that when I go next. So,
Nice.
um, so yeah, so that's my experience with the movies. Hotura, have you been able to think of anything yet? Mhm. Oh, oh, we're just going on to Hotura's answer.
Okay. Can I continue?
Yes,
Yes.
go ahead.
Okay, cool. I guess what brings me so much joy is the fact that as a kid, when you're watching the movie, you just think of it as like another cool cartoon like Ponyo. But then as an adult, when you watch it, you just realize how much he puts effort into this movie, so both kids and adults can enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot as a kid, except for Grave of the Fireflies. But everything else you really can enjoy whether or not you're a kid or an adult. And it, in a sense, it teaches you how to be a parent. I'm not a parent yet. I don't plan on to, but like if I did, it would be one of the first things that I want them to grow up like. There are two things: either Studio Ghibli movies or Tom and Jerry. Like those are the two things I want them to experience growing up. And also another thing is I just love how much art and how selfless Miyazaki is. Because Studio Ghibli, there's so many artists who do Studio Ghibli things out there, and he can totally just flag them all and be like, nope, I'm making my money out of this. But no, he lets artists does whatever they want. You can sell them on, you can, make his art and sell them on Etsy, on wherever. And he doesn't care. Like, he's just so forgiving and nice. And I want my kids to learn that. But something like that. I think I
Yeah, I think
answered your
that's a
question.
huge. No, I think you absolutely answered it. Like I think that's a
Okay.
huge fuel for fandom because you see like certain creators who are just militant about shutting down fan art, and you're like, what are you getting out of this by like squashing? Like, is this just for money?
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's just so cool that there's so many different variations of his art by different
mhm,
artists, and it's just really cool. Whenever you go to a con, you're like, oh hey,
mhm.
Oh yeah. And it's even just some of the crossovers they think of too, and
oh
just the
yeah.
creativity that comes out of the fandom is amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah, some of the most amazing cosplay I've
Mm.
seen is Miyazaki, Studio Ghibli related.
Can I show my most favorite, most badass painting of Princess
Absolutely.
Mononoke? All right, hold on.
I feel like I've seen this one and I love
I
it.
seriously had to get this framed because it's so beautiful.
Wow, yeah,
Oh, I love that so much.
that's amazing.
Oh,
You can just feel the energy in that.
Yeah.
so much love.
Like, so that one was an artist from Canada, and I seriously wish I forgot. I remember the artist. Now I feel kind of dumb for
If you do
not
remember,
tagging the
please send
artist.
it to me because I need that in my life.
You need that image in your life? It was $60, and yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
That's fine.
Yeah, no. When I saw that, I was like, "Who the hell is that?" And then I got closer, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's Princess Mononoke!" And it was just kind of like, I have to buy it. And at the time, I was actually also an artist, so I couldn't just like get up and go over there and buy it. But it was only Friday, and he had over 100 images of that one. And I came over, I was like, "Hey, it's my lunch break. I was wondering if I could buy this one." He goes, "You're in luck. It's my last one." And I was like, "Yes!" But dang, yeah. So
Nice.
most badass, most favorite. So I just love the fact
Yeah.
that there's so many variations of his art that anybody can do,
Mhm.
and Miyazaki just doesn't flag them because he's like, share the love.
Yeah, that's so lovely.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah,
nice
that's
if it
my
all
favorite
worked
when a
that way.
creator does something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a bummer that it's
So
rare
that's all I got.
sometimes, that it's as rare as it
Right?
is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, I guess like for our final topic, I just if anyone has any specific qualities of the films or any topic adjacent to them that like we haven't been able to discuss here yet, or that you just find really important that you would like feel bummed if you weren't able to bring up during this panel. I guess like now is the time to talk about that. Like anything adjacent to these movies, Studio Ghibli, Miyazaki, anime that fascinates you or that really excites you. Um, yeah, just anything like that. If you would be interested in talking about that, we'll go to buttons first.
Oh man. Um, I think for the most part, I feel like we've covered everything I wanted to talk about. I mean, I think the biggest thing, and it's like Hotaro mentioned, is Miyazaki just doesn't police his art. He lets the fandom create, and the artwork and the creativity, the cosplays that come from that is just beautiful. And especially, we don't see that a whole lot. I think we see it some in anime because we see cosplays of that everywhere. But I think outside of anime, it's a very, very rare thing for an artist to not police what's happening with their art.
Yeah,
I would think
for sure.
especially with US based artists and writers, authors, they police stuff a lot, and so to have somebody who just goes, no, whatever you create, whatever you do to
Mm-hmm.
spin on my art is beautiful, it's amazing to see.
Mm-hmm. And it shows like because his films are so much about the power of inspiration and creative inspiration and drawing from your heroes, and like it just proves that like he practices what he preaches with that like it's
Yes.
important to him not just as a thing to make movies about but as a life philosophy. I think it makes it really real. Any additional thoughts, Kristen?
Um, about that or just about anything?
Anything? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I will definitely echo that sentiment too, but I guess one of the things that sort of stands out to me too, that we didn't maybe talk about quite as much was just like the Japanese folklore aspect of it. It's really strong in some of them, particularly like Spirited Away is one example for sure, um, where it pulls in a lot of things that are maybe more familiar to a Japanese audience than a Western audience, and some of that is like really my main or only kind of interaction with a lot of Japanese folklore stuff. There's obviously some I picked up with like anime and different things. You'll get snippets here and there, but it's just really lovely to get to engage with um, sort of that cultural piece of it in a way that we don't really have a lot of access to in the Western world, or unless you really go digging for it, and just like this different sort of quality to it, or like the sort of uncanniness of some of the like the fairy sort of elements, where like it sort of is a callback in some ways to some like fae or like Celtic stories that I know about, where it's like there's this beauty to it and this mystery, but also something is a little bit scary about it that you can't quite put your finger on, like the Kodama in Princess Mononoke, where they're just like these adorable, like delightful spirits, but also you don't quite know what they're up to. Like they're kind of like will o' the wisps. Like, are they gonna like draw you into the forest and like do something not so
Cute but
nice to you?
possibly dangerous.
Right, exactly. Um, or just yeah, some of the different like spirits that Chihiro encounters in Spirited Away. Like I think the radish spirit is based on some kind of a story that's related to, like, it's a little bit remixed for the movie, but there's like a some story about that, and um, just different, like, just I love the cultural piece of it and just getting to learn just a little bit about that I don't really have the opportunity to learn about other places.
Yeah,
And
for
then I guess,
sure.
yeah,
I
one other
think
thing I was thinking of was, oh yeah, go for it.
no, you're good. Go ahead.
Oh, just was going to quickly mention, in addition to like the animation, the music is really um, is really stellar too, and just like
Mhm.
sort of adds to like the world building and just the way that it draws you in, and just is super delightful always. And it's one of those ones that like I have just in the background as I'm working sometimes, or um, something that like it sort of tells you the story, but is enough in the background that it's more just supporting it rather than like being its own thing necessarily. And I really think it just works super well. That's all
Yeah.
I had to say about that, though.
I think it would be an absolute travesty if we did a full like hour long panel on Miyazaki and never once mentioned Joe Hisashi scores. So yeah, the music is beautiful. I think also echoing your point, like one of the first things that really interested me about Miyazaki was, yeah, the way that he approaches magic in his worlds just was completely unlike any other kind of fantasy that I'd ever seen. And
Totally.
like I'm not even close to qualified to discuss the sources of where it's coming from, but it just felt like something I'd never seen before, and it made me want to dig deeper and do more exploring, which is led me to other sources that
Mm-hmm.
inspired him, which is just like passing it along. I think that for me, as coming from a writer's perspective, as someone who's written a lot of screenplays, I think that the thing that most impresses me about Miyazaki is the lack of ego in his writing. That with a lot of like comparatively, like let's go with children's animated films, like Pixar. Pixar is very clear about like these are the themes of our story. This is why this story is important. These are the ideas that we're putting forth, and this is the journey that our character's going on. And it's not that Miyazaki doesn't have that, but he wants you to experience it in a way where like you're not piecing it together, like the most recent one that I just watched being My Neighbor Totoro. The way that like how you experience the story isn't through like piecing together all these puzzle pieces, but through like, oh, this character's in distress and now this person's comforting them and I feel comforted just after I felt distressed. Or oh, when a person behaves that way, like when this father reassures his daughter while she's crying, like that makes me feel validated. And um and it's a very gentle and honest um type of storytelling that you feel. And I think it makes, like, when I watch his films, I feel like it's okay that I am who I am and that I'm validated, even if that's not exactly what the story's about at the time. It's how he handles his characters and it's how he handles his world. And I think that that is probably my favorite quality of him as a storyteller. Um,
Totally.
so
Yeah, it just gives you so
any
many things that you didn't know you needed.
Yeah. So any final thoughts, Wichura?
Still talking until I'm done with the drawing.
Oh, you
Coming
I can
along very
talk
well,
more.
I can see.
No, I'm just kidding. Oh, does this mean the panel's almost ending then?
I think so. I'm gonna scan through the Facebook and YouTube and see if we have any questions, and we can
Okay.
address those for a little bit. Um,
Sorry, I'm not a fast painter.
uh,
I'm with you there.
okay. One of them. Some people asked if if any of us had seen Borrow the Caterpillar or any of the other shorts like On Your Mark. Has anyone seen any of those?
Sadly, no. Yeah.
No, I
Yes, but I
haven't.
don't remember it because I was a young ADHD child.
Mm.
Fair.
I
It's very fair.
when I went to see, I think it was Spirited Away at the Uptown. They played On Your Mark before it, and On Your Mark is like the geekiest, most incredibly nerdy, amazing shit I have seen maybe in my life. Like every
Nice.
shot of it like we were just talking about like how gentle and like peaceful all of his stuff is, and that's a very different beast. Like he's just throwing it in your face, like, and every shot, it's like Blade Runner meets like Akira meets like 9 other like mech animes and other types of animes that I've never seen before.
Nice.
And plus with like a supernatural angel element to it, like it's
Wow.
just, and it's like 4 minutes long, and every single shot, I just want to take every single frame from it and put it up on my wall.
Oh man,
So
yeah.
that's, I would, it's
Super cool.
I think it's online. It might be on you. It might not legally be online. But it's something you can find it.
I thought everything was live for streaming
It's
now.
out there.
Not everything, but yeah. So let me see here if we got anything on YouTube. Someone did ask me how I could heckle My Neighbor Totoro.
I feel like that's a great question.
Oh, I don't want to go to that place. I think a lot of it was me pointing out that it was boring, that nothing was happening, that the children were like when the children are loud and obnoxious, me like imitating that voice, like they're whining, which is like the exact thing that he's telling you not to do. Really, it's a whole what not to do type situation. Don't do what I did.
Learning
Learn from my
experience.
mistakes. That I think that's what's important. Let's see here. Someone asked, has anyone seen Miyazaki's earlier works like Anne of Green Gables, Sherlock Hound, or Lupin?
Yes, but it's been a very long time.
I
want to say it's probably been like, oh, I don't even know how long. I have vague
Okay.
memories of them.
These questions are making me feel like I'm not a true fan anymore because
Same.
I don't remember
Gosh.
half of them, or I
always
know
feel
the
like such a
name,
poser.
but that's it. I'm like, crap, I'm a poser. Crap.
there
I
are
shouldn't
no
even be
true
breaking
fans.
this.
By so much. It's like it's a feeling I get like from back when I was an English major in college. I'm like, oh yeah, I know some stuff about literature, and then the second I get into like a Brit Lit class, it's like, nope, you have read literally nothing. Like I just like never feel like I can catch up with these things, but I'm trying.
I have no idea who said this, which shows what I don't know. But like, whoever said the beginning of wisdom is knowing what you don't know, and I don't know that, so that's the beginning of wisdom for me there as well. So
it's a solid quote, that's for sure. I find that more and more true as I get older.
Do you guys have Miyazaki merch in your room that you guys want to show off?
I can't bring my
I've just got
computer
a
to my
poster.
room, so.
I
don't
I've just
actually
got
have
one
that
Princess
much.
Mononoke poster. I can actually go and get that. I will be right back.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like I have a
You know,
cat
the
bus
funny thing is,
keychain, but I
Princess
don't wear
Mononoke
it.
isn't even my favorite Miyazaki movie, but somehow I always end up collecting it because she's so badass. You can't hate that movie. You just have to love that movie.
Yeah.
But like for some odd reason, somehow, whenever I go somewhere, I end up buying her crap. Not her crap, but like her amazing fan art. And I'm just like, holy crap, she's so badass looking. Like my
So
my
iconic.
painting that I absolutely don't need, that I can't live without, that I don't need. But
No, you needed it.
All right, so this is the poster.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
that's badass.
The moment that I saw this, I knew that I needed to own this. She'll be mad at me for telling this story, but when I watched Princess Mononoke for the first time with my little sister, she was like 12 at the time, and when the princess was running along the roof, like holding her knife as she was running, Lydia just kind of whispered under her breath, "Oh, she's cool." And
She's
and I
not
was just
wrong.
like, yes, I've sold it.
Right.
Yep. Like that is the exact right reaction. Like that's the archetypal reaction to that moment.
It's like when a Christian converts somebody. It's like, yes, I saved them.
Oh, it's absolutely that was in with it.
It's not even for their own good. It's for your own self-worth. You're like, oh, okay.
You're just like one of
Yes,
us.
they're one of us now.
Yep. Basically.
Yeah, if they get anything, if they end up enjoying it, that's fine, whatever. But
Right.
Right.
The important thing is we get them obsessed, just like us.
yes. So we can drag them down there with us into that rabbit hole. Let me see here.
I messed
one
up,
more.
guys. While I was talking about it, I got so excited. I got some ink on my wrist. And so now Calcifer looks like he just got beat up, kind of. And then there goes this little bacon. And then I know White Totoro isn't supposed to hold Calcifer, but whatever. And then I'm not done with that. But hey, look, it's these little guys. So hopefully dry it out a little bit more.
So for this one, I'll go back to the question that we had a little bit ago, which was, have we seen the earlier films? I have seen Cagliostro, which I watched recently. And it's actually like, I thought, I was surprised how well it holds up. Like, it's incredibly entertaining. Like, one thing that we haven't talked about as much is just kind of how playful and silly Miyazaki can get at his best. And I think that in particular is a showcase of like it's mostly like a heist film, like action adventure romp, and he just does it up. Like, it's not his usual. I don't think it's the kind of thing that he would make if it wasn't like an early job for somebody else. But he's still like, oh yeah, like this is a story about a guy breaking into a castle, like putting on disguises, tricking people and stuff. Yeah, I'm on board. I can do that. So it is. I really do enjoy that one as well.
Have you guys ever been to the Studio Ghibli Museum?
Oh, I wish.
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, you guys are missing out. The next time you go to Japan, there is a waiting list though. So you have to buy the tickets in advance. And it's a lottery whether or not you get in. And I was super lucky to be able to get in. And now that you mentioned how playful he is, you don't realize how playful he is until you go to his museum. There is a bird cage for an elevator. It's awesome.
That's great.
That's so cool.
When you first get in, they give you a little ticket, and it's a little it's like a little film, and you hold it up to the light and you can see an art that him or one of his artists drew, and that's your ticket. So like when you're all done with the museum, you get to go into the movie theater and you get to watch a little clip of how it works, and you get to see his desk. It is a pigsty. Literally, he loves pigs, but holy crap, you didn't expect him to live like one. Like, that's not necessarily true, but like his art is everywhere. It is super massive, and they just like super glued everything down to make sure that it sticks there. But you're just like, this is like an organized mess that I don't understand, and holy crap. But like when you go there, and then like there's this staircase just for little kids, and only little kids can fit through. And of course, I'm only 5'2", so I'm like, heck yeah! So I climbed in there, and I was close to getting caught. But you just realize like how much effort was put into this museum. Like, for him as an adult, as an old man, but yet he still has the heart of a kid, and it's just amazing. And then when you walk outside, you think that's it. You turn around and there's a huge iron robot looking at you, and you're like, I'm still gonna take a picture of that. And it's amazing. And like a lot of people don't realize this, but the outside of the Studio Ghibli Museum, I don't know if you know this, but if you look at it from a certain angle, which I kind of regret not taking a picture, it's the cat bus. And
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
That's
also
amazing.
another thing that people don't know about is the entrance. When you walk in, that's fine, but the entrance that you walk out of, it's the cat's butt. And it leads to a park, a really, really nice park. And I was super lucky that I went there during the springtime. So like there was a lot of like cherry blossoms, and kids were getting out of school in their, preppy, cute little uniforms. Reminds you how old you are. But just it was just super cool to be in there. And then when you're sitting on the third floor, there's a cafe, like a Studio Ghibli cafe. And
Oh,
like the food there is super duper cute. I heard the food kind of went down a little bit, but I don't really know
Aw, that's
because
cute.
when I went there, like the cheesecake that you got, you can tell that they sprinkled sugar on it onto the shape of Totoro. There was another one where my friend ordered a waffle and it was like the shape of I think it was the shape of one of the little forest spirits, but it was just super cool.
that's where
So
all my money would go.
if you get the chance to go, a few hours is not going to be enough. You're going to want to be a kid in there, and you just see how much detail was put in it, and it's amazing. If you're a Studio Ghibli fan, it's where you want to be. So
I'll just spend all my money on that cafe. It's fine.
you don't have to spend all your money on that cafe because at the end of it there is a gift shop, and that gift shop is packed, dude. I ran out of patience. I don't have patience to wait a half an hour in line. And holy crap. And like my husband walked out and I was like, you've watched like 2 Studio Ghibli films. And he's like, I know, but I got like $150 of the stuff because it's cute. And I'm like, okay.
You just can't not. That's amazing.
And I'm just kind of like, I'm the bigger fan, but I wasn't willing to wait in line, but you are. What did you buy? And it was all gifts for other people because
Yeah.
the stuff that you buy in there, it's useful, which is really nice because a lot of gift shops that you go into, it's all useless crap, maybe like cheap useless towels or something like that. It's nice shit.
That's awesome.
So just letting you
All
know.
right, guys. Japan trip, anybody?
I'm ready.
I'm in.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'll give you a tour.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Hmm.
All right. I think that if everybody's good with that and doesn't have anything to add, I think that I'd like to see the artwork up close, just see it where you got how
Oh,
far you got.
I'm really sorry I messed up, but it's pretty much a lot done.
Looks
All right, let's have
awesome.
a
Yeah.
look.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's
So
great.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
yeah.
So good.
I don't have no idea what I'm gonna do with this because I don't sell canvases or anything.
Ah.
So if anybody wants it, you can IM me.
All right.
I call
Um,
dibs.
Sounds good. We might have a fight.
okay, that was quick. Well, I guess I am an artist. I do have my business card. I sent in a picture of my business card, Todd. So it's mine. On top of it is my friend. Her name is Penelope Loves Prince. She also sells a lot of Studio Ghibli stuff. And I sell some stuff, and you can definitely go on my website and check it out. Um, but Todd, if you just want to pull up the picture, my business card is there. It's pretty basic. So yeah, if you guys are interested.
Yeah, good to know.
Absolutely.
Definitely gonna check it
Yeah.
out.
Or I can show off my merchandise that I got. Look at rolls.
That's
This is mine.
awesome.
Okay. Here's another one.
Love it. Oh,
It
that one
also
is.
rolls.
Oh my goodness.
And here's my last favorite
What color is
one.
that?
It also
That
rolls.
one's really cute.
Yeah. So if you guys want to order, her name is Darama Cat. If you guys can see it. Crap. Sorry.
There you go.
That's her pins. And like it's super cheap. Like to be honest, I only got these for $15, and these are huge pins. They're not like one of the tiny little dinky ones, and it's buy three, get one free.
That's amazing. Wow.
But yeah. I go to like 30, 40 cons a year, so I'm super lucky that I get to see all these artists. So I highly recommend it.
Cool.
Go
Whenever
to
there
cons,
is,
guys. Waste your money.
whenever the next con opens up, I will be there and I will be dressed like a pigman. So I will try to hit all of you up when that happens. Whenever those
If
are
it's
open
Detour,
again.
you'll for sure see me and Hortura there.
Cool.
You don't have a choice.
There's no get together.
Yeah. Um,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Let's go around and just give our social media too. I am You can at Lost in Headspace, and on Twitter, Ryan J. Sanderson 88, and I am also on Facebook, just Ryan Sanderson.
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. They're all under the same name. So think about it as I don't really know what I'm doing, and my dog's name is Ein, so I don't know.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's cute.
Oh,
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop.
If you're a real weeb and you watch Cowboy Bebop, you'll totally understand this.
Yup.
Yep.
Yep. So if you're interested in following me, I'm still really new at this. I've only been an artist for like 6 months with this name. So you can support me if you want. I don't really care. So
Sweet.
Nice.
I run all of Anime Detour's social media, so I don't have time for my own. So if you ever just want to see what I'm up to, just check out Anime Detour on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and you'll see whatever random stuff I happen to be posting at the time.
yep. She's really random.
Dad.
Con takes over my life. It's fine.
It is what it is, you know? Yeah. Yeah, I'm bad at being on social media, but I do have an art Instagram that I just started with just random whatever art I'm doing at the time. Just k.liz.arts. If you're curious. Mostly it's lettering art right now, and some abstract stuff, but we'll see what it ends up being later on. It's probably going to be some more stuff. I'll get some more variety in there eventually, but I just started it like 3 months ago. But I was like, I do some art, I should probably share it with people sometimes. So it's sort of a motivation for myself too, to just keep doing it, because I'm good at coming up with excuses to not do it enough. So
It's okay. I was
Shameless
drawing on
plug.
napkins for like 7 years before my
ever
husband was
wanna
like,
show
please start
off
drawing
your
on a
art?
tablet.
If you ever want to show off your
Oh.
art, Anime Detour has an Artist of the Month, so shameless plug in there.
yeah, cool.
One more.
I forgot to mention. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Ryan, you go first.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'll
All right, guys, rock, paper,
Okay,
scissors.
I'm gonna go. So, okay. So, I completely forgot. On my Instagram, I actually don't show a whole lot of Studio Ghibli stuff, but I should. However, if you are interested, the website I actually have a lot more Studio Ghibli stuff on my actual website. What I do is I do photography and then I draw over them. So if you're interested in seeing more Studio Ghibli stuff, I have some stuff on there. I don't sell anything because I mostly sell at cons, and I'm sorry. But you can personally message me and see how I feel. So, okay, Ryan, your turn. Sorry.
All right. All of the short films that I've made, and also a lot of the writing that I'm doing is at my website, ryanjeffreysanderson.com. There should be the link should be on my page on Twin Cities Geek. So right now I'm doing a film journal where I watch a film a day for all of 2020, and then I have to write about each and every one of them. There are a lot of Miyazaki films in there, and I'm just writing my responses and doing dialogues about it. So that is there as well. So, and I link to that in all my social media as well. So that's it for me. If everybody else is good, this has been a blast. I've loved doing this. Thank you all so much for being a part of it, and you should check everyone's stuff out. Because it's a smart, fun group of people, and thanks for geeking out with us for a little bit. This has been a lot of fun.